In this video today, I'm going to get into what's really going on when your wife says, I need time to think during a period when your marriage is struggling, because it's not what you may believe it is. And more importantly, if you handle this moment wrong, you can actually push her further away without realizing it. But if you handle it right, this is one of the few moments where you can actually start turning things around. If you felt a lot of tension building for weeks and your wife said she needs time to think, you have probably started playing so many mind tricks on yourself, asking, what do you mean she needs time to think? Like, is she about to leave? Is she thinking about divorce? Is she already gone emotionally and just trying to drag it out and let me down gently? Watch to the end of this episode because it's going to help you unlock the misunderstanding that most men never figure out about what she's truly thinking about, and it will set you up to give her exactly what she needs so you don't make the mistake of making her think about things you really don't want to. A huge misinterpretation by most men, and if this is you, I don't blame you because this was me as well. You think that when she just needs some time to think, it means she's actually going to go analyze the relationship logically. Like she's going to go sit down, weigh the pros and cons, and come back with a clear decision. But that is not what's happening. If she says she needs time to think, I can promise you it almost always means that she's trying to escape how the relationship feels to her right now, because something inside the dynamic has become very, very heavy and unstable. There's probably been a lot of tense emotion and uncertainty in the relationship dynamic. So you know that women don't want to hurt their feelings, and they have these sort of vague things to say, like, I really need to think, when they actually mean something else. Like when I would ask my mom for something when I was a kid and she would say, we'll see. I had some hope, but after enough times of hearing that, I kind of caught on, and we'll see meant no. So I'm not saying your wife or long-term girlfriend saying to you that she needs time to think means that she doesn't want to be with you and it means no. But what she's really saying is that she needs space to see how it feels. She needs ability to breathe from everything and take a break from the pressure that the dynamic has been going lately, which is probably going sideways. It doesn't mean that she needs time to think because she wants your relationship to fail, but reliving the same thing over and over with you again starts to feel like way too much for her. So what do most men do next? They try and close the gap immediately, because her saying she needs time to think, like I said, it's misinterpreted by most men. So you might be prone to asking her questions that you desperately want answers to, but even you asking these questions can cause so much more damage that if the answers were what you wanted to hear, it really doesn't matter in actuality. I'm talking about asking her things like, how much time do you need to think? What do you really need to think about? Are you saying you want to leave? Like, are we done? And I get it, like these things feel incredibly uncertain. So of course you want to have some level of clarity or get a good status report on how bad it looks for you. But here's the problem. I mentioned that even if you got some version of an answer that maybe makes you feel better on the surface, maybe she says, yeah, we are fine, I just need to kind of think about us, or something that sounds harmless and maybe makes you feel a bit more secure or clear. First of all, that's not even the real answer anyway, so it really doesn't help you except on that surface level. And the reason I said asking her in the first place may cause more damage, because as much as they are legitimate questions that you want to know the answer to, they just increase pressure on her. I mean, she's not stupid. Like, she knows that those questions are coming from a place of fear and scarcity. So her even giving you an answer that I gave you an example of, it's more just managing your fear than those answers being actually true. And really, you just come off as very unconfident and scarce. And that is a very, very unattractive quality to women. Because look, as we discussed earlier in the video, her thinking is not really thinking. It's just trying to get some space to process how she feels with everything in the relationship dynamic. The relationship dynamic has just started to feel so unsafe for her emotionally. So instead of stepping back and allowing her to breathe, you asking those questions, although relatively harmless in your head, really just keep pulling back on her and that cloud of fear that's coming from you, really just asking for those answers. Another big mistake is trying to cut down the time it takes her to think by all of a sudden trying to prove to her how much you've changed, like this instant change. And that is what the goal is. You have to change how you've been showing up in the relationship. But most guys change the wrong things in hopes that they can convince her and slice that thinking time as much as possible. So suddenly you become more attentive and even apologetic for a lot of things. And you think that if you can just get her validation about how much better you're being, or an even worse idea, trying to brainstorm with her to help her come to conclusions on whatever she needs to think about, again, stemming from the misunderstanding of what is actually going on with her, The emotional signal you are sending to her is again rooted in fear, and it is reactive to her needing space to think. But because her space needed is actually just to be able to see how her feelings are in terms of processing them, you continuing to engage her emotions in that way works completely against you. So look, I think you get it. Trying to help her out by doing any of those actions rooted in fear is just going to make her feel like everything depends on how things feel today, and you're only going to confirm to her that the dynamics are just not right emotionally. So if she's telling you she needs time to think, what should you be giving her instead of those reactive actions? What she really needs from you at this time is a complete shift in the emotional experience of the relationship. Because I can promise you, if your marriage or long-term relationship has gotten to this point where she needs time to think, that means enough has happened where she's not experiencing you on a positive basis and consistent basis emotionally. And yes, I get it. It doesn't mean that she's been perfect either. It's not about that. You have to control what you can, and that is how you show up as the leader of the relationship. So instead of chasing clarity, you give her the space that she needs to think, but you don't just completely withdraw and act defeated. You don't stomp away telling her, fine, like take all the space you want in like a frustrated manner just to kind of show her emotion and show her how much you care. And I say that because it wasn't my finest moment, but I've done it before in my past. It does not work. Like 0 stars. I do not recommend. If you can understand that you have to put in a lot of counterintuitive work on yourself in order for this to be impactful, you have to start being responsive with steadiness and not be in such a rush to fix everything immediately so that you can feel better. If you do that, it's going to cause you to do all the fearful tactics we talked about earlier, which is then going to make her feel more unsettled in the dynamic. And yes, part of that is you have to be strong enough to tolerate uncertainty with the relationship and not know exactly where things stand with her for a while. You have to detach yourself from that outcome. And when you do that, it gives you the absolute best chance to get that outcome that you actually want. Her thinking to conclude with her feeling the emotional dynamics have changed in the relationship so that she can feel safer and attraction can start to rebuild for you again. If you want to simplify it and just kind of sum it up, there are really just 3 things you need to give her in this moment. Space without making it dramatic, stability without becoming cold, and calm leadership without trying to control the outcome. I said before that she isn't sitting down to think about this logically and come up with like a spreadsheet or an analysis of why she should or shouldn't stay in the marriage or relationship. When she asks for time to think, what she's really doing is watching what happens next. She's going to be paying attention to how she feels, not to what you say, not to what you promise, but how it feels to be around you. Does the pressure actually go away? Does the dynamic feel different, or does it feel like the same tension, but maybe just in a quieter form? Because if nothing changes and you continue to chase after her and try and convince her to like hash it out with you, or you're just putting on a performance to try and sway her thinking, all you're going to do is confirm her fears and prove her confirmation bias about you is right. You're never going to change, and it may not feel right at all to continue the relationship. But if something does change, if you are able to start making her experience with you completely different in the relationship, and also I'm not talking about being perfect, like you don't have to morph into this perfect man, we are all human, but if you start showing that you get it, like you stop being reactive based on your fears, you start validating her feelings and making her feel heard, it's going to start to feel so much different for her. The reality is your goal isn't to be doing this for her anyways. That is why I say you have to detach yourself from the outcome. You should be wanting to have this transformation for you. And in doing so, it works concurrently to allow her to have the space to breathe and start to feel something differently from you. This really is a turning point for you, and you have to make that decision to look at the paths laid out in front of you and choose the one you really want. If your wife has told you she needs time to think, don't treat it like a moment that you just have to fix everything immediately. Treat it like the turning point where you can take back full control and rid yourself of all the complacency. I just spent over a decade making the same mistakes over and over again, and I can look back on it as wasted time, but it happened enough where it allowed me to make a decision to figure out what I was doing wrong so it would never happen again. And that was the best decision I have ever made. And you too can begin changing that very thing that caused her to need space in the first place. And that is what starts to reopen the door with her. If you want to start making the changes that work, I invite you to go watch my free Relationship Rebuild Masterclass. It's going to walk you through the step-by-step blueprint that changed my life, changed my client's life, and it can change your life and give you the fastest way back to leading her reconnection naturally in your relationship. It's absolutely free, and if you're serious about saving your marriage or long-term relationship, I encourage you to go watch that today. The link for that free masterclass is in the description and pinned comment below. If this video helped you out, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel as well. I'll see you in the next episode real soon.